Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Thank you all very much for being here. My name is Russell Shorto. I'm the director of the John Adams Institute, which is an American culture center here in Amsterdam. And it's always a pleasure for us we host events around the city, and it's always a pleasure to have events in the West India House, for one reason, because this is really, for an organization that's a Dutch-American cross-cultural organization, this is really the epicenter, because this is the place from which the West India Company planned the colony of New Netherland with its capital on Manhattan Island. So it really all started here. And for a second reason, our offices are in this building, so it's terribly convenient for us. We are very pleased to host James Ellroy, who has been, I think, twice in the past with the John Adams, but not for a long time. The way our they're usually evenings, the way our events go, Mr. Ellroy will give a reading, and then we'll have a moderated discussion and questions. Our moderator today is no less illustrious a personage. Jan Donkers is a literary critic for the NRC Handelsblad. He specializes in American literature. He writes about many other topics, music among them. He's the author of works of fiction, nonfiction, and plays. He also did a stint once as a professor of Dutch studies in Austin, Texas, where God knows they are clamoring for Dutch studies. And he also was a regular moderator for the John Adams, and with one thing and another, he hasn't been on our slate for a long time, so we're very happy to have him back. Jan Donkers.
Thank you very much, Russell. Thank you. And let me say, yes, on a personal note, it feels very good to be back at the John Adams Institute. And it feels especially good to be able to introduce our special guest for this afternoon, Mr. James Ellroy, on the occasion of the publication of Blood's a Rover, the third volume of his Underworld USA trilogy, and the impending publication of The Hilliker Curse, subtitled My Pursuit of Women, which more or less was serialized in Playboy magazine. Both books, incidentally, to be published, or already published, by Uitgeverij Atlas in translation. Mr. Ellroy was born in Los Angeles in 1948. His mother, Jean Hilliker, was murdered when he was 10 years old, an event that shaped his life more than anything else. After a juvenile period that included voyeurism, drug use, petty theft, and homelessness, he started to write in the late 70s. The self-induced revelation came on the 8th hole, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Ellroy, on the 8th hole at the Bel Air Country Club golf course, where he worked as a caddy and where he said, "Please God, let me start this novel tonight." And he did. He started writing, publishing crime fiction that started getting big attention with the publication of what is now known as the LA Quartet. The Black Dahlia, The Big Nowhere, LA Confidential, and White Jazz. Books that are still being read, devoured, worshipped by readers the world over as prime examples of a genre that is known under the odd name of crime noir. Trying to recreate the LA of the time his mother lived and died in, and as an homage to her, he will say the LA books quartets are about bad men in love with strong women. But no longer satisfied with being described as a crime writer, he embarked upon a project even more ambitious, with what is now known as the Underworld USA trilogy, in which he explores a theme that he calls the private nightmare of public policy. Starting with American Tabloid, which describes the period between 1958 and the 1963 assassination of John F. Kennedy, followed by The Cold 6000, which picks up more or less where American Tabloid ended, and describes the period where Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King are murdered, and concluded with the series concluded with the trilogy, I should say, concluded with the present volume, Blood's a Rover, the title taken incidentally from a poem by A.E. Housman. which describes the Nixon years, the crazy 60s, Black Power struggle, the mob trying to branch out to the Dominican Republic, the Cuban crisis, the Cuban Missile Crisis, rigged elections, the Vietnam War, large-scale heroin running by the CIA, the Civil Rights Movement, the Ku Klux Klan, the Kennedy brothers, J. Edgar Hoover, Sam Giancana, and other leading mobsters, Teamster boss Jimmy Hoffa, reclusive Howard Hughes, Martin Luther King. They all play roles in this powerful trilogy. But, as Mr. Ellroy says about all these persons and occurrences, we know that. That's the public policy. But who's out there taking names, doing the wiretapping, breaking legs, shaking people down, making a buck out of it, and suffering the convoluted morality of it? Who's coming to the point where they can't do it anymore, and what makes them change? That's the private nightmare. That's Bloods a Rover. Like its predecessors, Bloods a Rover suggests a deep and fateful connection between organized crime and high-end American political institutions, the intelligence agencies included. Like the two previous novels, Bloods a Rover features three protagonists who do the leg-breaking and the extorting. Wayne Tidrow Jr., an ex-Las Vegas cop, Don Crutchfield, a private detective in LA, and Dwight Holly, J. Edgar Hoover's main enforcer and strongman. How dark and loathsome their characters may be, they also show a sense of humanity in this volume more than in the previous two, and hopefully Mr. Ellroy will have something to say about this. He has been described as the American Dostoevsky by no less a colleague than Joyce Carol Oates, one of the great American writers of our time by the Los Angeles Times, and a unique voice in American fiction by Jonathan Kellerman. Dozens of critics and millions of readers can be wrong. It's an honor and a pleasure to introduce to you Mr. James Ellroy.
Good afternoon, peepers, prowlers, pederast, pedants, panty sniffers, punks, and pimps. I'm James Ellroy, the death dog with a hog log and the foul owl with the death growl, the author of 17 books, masterpieces all. These books will leave you reamed, steamed, and dry cleaned, tied, dyed, swept to the side, screwed, blued, tattooed, and bafangooed. These are books for the whole fucking family. If the name of your family is the Manson family, here is the British export edition of Bloods a Rover, my new novel. Don't buy this one. Here is the book published by Atlas in Dutch. Read it in your own native language. If you can't, like me, read Dutch, read this book. It's also published in French, Italian, Spanish, Serbo-Croatian, Braille, Sanskrit, Zulu, Udi, and numerous other languages indigenous to the Dutch Antilles. Today, I'm going to read a little bit of Bloods a Rover. Mr. Donkers and I are going to have a scathing discussion of what all of this shit means. Then we would welcome the most overly invasive personal questions that each and every one of you peepers, prowlers, pederast, pedants, panty sniffers, punks, and pimps has for us. Bloods a Rover. America! I window peeped for years of our history. It was one long mobile stakeout and kick the door in, shake down. I had a license to steal and a ticket to ride. I followed people. I bugged and tapped and cut big events in ellipsis. I remained unknown. My surveillance links the then to the now in a never-before-revealed manner. I was there. My reportage is buttressed by credible hearsay and insider tattle. Massive paper trails provide verification. This book derives from stolen public files and usurped private journals. It is the sum of personal adventure and 40 years of scholarship. I am a literary executor and an agent provocateur. I did what I did and saw what I saw and learned my way through to the rest of the story. Scripture pure veracity and scandal rag content. That conjunction gives it its sizzle. You carry the seed of belief within you already. You recall the time this narrative captures and sense conspiracy. I am here to tell you that it is all true and not at all what you think. You will read with some reluctance and capitulate in the end. The following pages will force you to succumb. I am going to tell you everything. Chapter 2, Don Crutchfield, Los Angeles, 6/15/68. Women! Two bevies walked by the lot. The first group looked like shop girls. They wore Ivy League threads and modified bouffants. The second group was pure hippie. They wore patched up jeans, peacenik shit, and long straight hair that swirled. They came and went. The wheelmen waved. The hippie chicks waved back. The hippie chicks changed their mind and flipped off the wheelmen. The wheelmen wolf called. The Shell Station lot, Beverly and Hayworth. 4 pumps and a service bay office. 3 wheelmen sprawled in their sleds. Bobby Gallard had a Rocket Olds. Bill Irwin had a 409 Chevy. Crutch had a 65 GTO. He was the rookie wheelman. He had the boss ride, 390 Hurst 4-speed, Coon maroon paint. Bobby and Phil were midday blitzed on high-test vodka. Crutch was residual torqued on the girl show. He scanned the street for more walk-bys. Zilch, just some old Hebes loping to shul. Back to the paper. Snore. James Ellroy and Sirhan Sirhan. Yawn! America grieves, accused assassin's lair. Ray vibed pencil neck. Sirhan vibed towel head. Hey, America, I got your grief swinging. Crutch flipped pages. He hit flyweights at the Forum and a grabber. Life magazine offers million scoots for Howard Hughes picks. A redhead walked by. Crutch waved at her. She scowled like he was a dog turd. Wheelmen emitted bad vibes. They were low rent and indigenously fucked up. They perched in the lot. They waited for work from skank private eyes and divorce lawyers. They tailed cheating spouses, kicked in doors, and took photos of the fools bawling. It was a high-risk, high-yucks job with female skin potential. Crutch was new to it. He wanted to groove the job forever. The paper called Howard Hughes a billionaire recluse. Crutch got a brainstorm. He could starve himself down to bones and shimmy up a heat shaft. Snap, one Polaroid in vamoose. The lot dozed. Bobby Gallard skimmed Beaver mags and slurped Smirnoff 100. Phil Irwin wiped his 409 with a chamois cloth. The lot dozed. No work, no walk-by coups. Gas station ennui. It was hot. It was humid. Crutch yawned and aimed the AC vent at his balls. It perked him up and got him head tripping. Gas station blahs, adieu. He was 23. He got expelled from Hollywood High for candid camera stunts in the girls' gym. His old man lived in a Goodwill box outside Santa Anita. Crutch Sr. panhandled, bet all day, and ate pastrami burritos exclusive. His mom vanished on 6/18/55. Crutch was 10 then. She up and split, and she never returned. She sent him a Christmas card and a 5-spot every year, different postmarks, no return address. He built his own missing persons file. It filled up 4 big boxes. He killed time with it. He called around the country and ran PD checks, hospital checks, obit checks. He kicked off his quest in fucking junior high school. Nothing. Margaret Woodard Crutchfield was still stone gone. The wheelman gig fell on his head. It happened like this. He kept up with his high school pal, Buzz Duber. Buzz shared his passion for pad prowls. Soft prowls like this. Hancock Park, big dark houses, preppy girls' lairs. Knock, knock, nobody's home? Good. You enter undetectably, you carry a pen light, you dig some plush cribs. You walk through girls' bedrooms and exit with lingerie sets. He did it a few times with Buzz. He did it a lot by himself. Buzz's dad was Clyde Duber. Clyde was a big-time PI. He did divorce jobs and got celebs out of the shit. He installed college kids in left-wing groups and got them to rat out subversion. The fuzz popped Crutch on a panty prowl. They snagged him with some black lace undies and a sandwich he glommed from Sally Compton's fridge. Clyde bailed him out and got his record expunged. Clyde got him wheelman and chump surveillance gigs. Clyde said, window peeping is kosher, but nixed B and E. Clyde said, kid, I will pay you to peep. Crutch had a flop at the Vivian Apartments. It was a walk-up dive just south of Paramount. Grips and stagehands lived there. Bit players turned lunchtime tricks in a jumbo mop closet. Crutch crammed all his shit into 2 rooms. His file shit, his camera shit, his car shit, his bug and tap shit. Clyde taught him surveillance. He had phone cords and wire mounts up the yin-yang. He had the full run of Playboy magazine. He had Carcraft back to 52. His wallpaper was 41 Playboy Playmates. He settled in for the night. He updated his mother's last known location. Christmas 67. Margaret Woodard Crutchfield writes from Des Moines. Every known records check, 0. Backtrack to 66. A Christmas card from Dubuque. Every in-between town, full records checks, 0. Crutch got antsy. Buzz was who knows where, blitzed on who knows what. Buzz had this mean streak that he lacked. Buzz carried a fake cop's badge and coerced head out of hookers. Nix that. Holding it in was better. It was warm out. A summer storm brewed. Crutch took a drive. He circled up to Hollywood Boulevard and out to the Strip. He looked at people. The long-haired girls jazzed him, and the long-haired guys rubbed him wrong. He trawled for that 62 bird and Scotty's blowjob bandits. He saw 2 fags in a 61 bird and no more. He drove east to Hancock Park. He cut his lights and perched at 2nd and Plymouth. That big Spanish house held him. Window glow flickered upstairs and down. He saw Chrissy in USC sweats, one glimpse and gone. He saw Dana tie her hair back in the kitchen. Buzz didn't get it. Nobody got it. That's why he never told anyone. It wasn't Chrissy Lund. It was always Dana Lund, and she was 53 years old.
Listening to the way you introduced yourself to the audience, I thought, well, James Ellroy can always pursue a career as a rap artist. But unfortunately, that's not your style of music, is it?
Beethoven. It's been going downhill ever since.
This part was about and told by Don Crutchfield, one of the 3 main protagonists of your last book. He stays with us throughout the whole book.
Yes, he does.
He's the survivor, really.
Let's not give too much away, but I think it's safe to say. Yeah, he's a friend of mine in real life. I paid him to be in the book. He became a big-time private eye after he became a wheelman. He was involved in the Michael Jackson pedophile case. He'd be the first one to tell you that Michael Jackson is a career pedophile, bad human being. I'm not mourning him.
Okay.
Any more than I'm bothered about the extradition of Roman Polanski.
He stays with, as I said, he stays with us throughout the whole book, and he's instrumental also in the death of J. Edgar Hoover.
Did you say J. Edgar Hoover or gay Edgar Hoover?
Was he gay?
He was a celibate homosexual who never had sex with man, woman, or beast. A little schlong might have done him some good, Richard Nixon says in this book. And it's fiction. Never forget that. It adheres to the facts of history so far as I know them, but there's lots of shit we don't know about history.
This leads me to one thing that I had trouble believing reading the book.
What's that?
That Crutch enters the house of the FBI head. Just like that. Is that possible to
Yeah, it's
enter the
possible.
private
Yeah.
house
Yeah.
of the head of the FBI?
Yeah. J. Edgar Hoover had files in his basement. Yeah, he had some pornography. He had a lot of antiques. He never had a bodyguard perched outside. Yeah, it's plausible.
You, congratulations on the part that you read. It proves the wonderful style of this trilogy. By the way, was there some change in your writing style, starting with this trilogy? And if so, was that something that you deliberately strived at, or something that the subject matter demanded?
What happened
It's
was
more staccato. It's more
this
machine
book
gun.
is less staccato and more explicated and easier to read than the Colt 6000, the frankly flawed volume that precedes it. You should read the book in Dutch translation published by Atlas anyway to get the whole story, but there are a few things wrong with it, and it's my ex-wife, Helen Canote, a wonderful novelist herself, who pointed this out to me. I began that style with LA Confidential because the book was too long and I had to make cuts, although the story itself was inviolate. I took that style to delirious extremes in the following volume, White Jazz, and in the aforementioned The Colt 6000. Now I am back to a more formal, but no less Ellrovian style that will allow greater emotional breathing room for all of you, my beloved readers.
Coming back to J. Edgar Hoover, did you? And that comes back to
Gay Edgar Hoover.
well. Well, how can you say? I mean, if you say he'd never had sex, is a person gay then? Never had sex
Yeah.
with anything or anybody?
Yeah. He was an effeminate man who collected homosexual pornography and statues of well-oiled Greek gods and loved antiques.
How was he possible to stay in power for half a century?
He had dirt files on everybody. Yeah.
So that's why.
Yeah, he had a dirt file on you, I think. That's why you never emigrated to America.
Now, this is the third installment, the third volume of the trilogy.
Yeah.
Did you start out as a matter of? I would like to say that one should read the trilogy in its order, right?
And in Dutch.
And well, there are a lot of people I can tell there's a lot of people, not a lot, but some that I recognize that are from American extraction. Would you recommend them to?
No, I think you should buy the book in Dutch just to support the publishers in your adopted country, and the book in English.
But coming back to my question, did you start out to write a trilogy? When you started writing American Tabloid, did you? First of all, it was Don Lillo's book that inspired you to do that. It somehow opened the door for the possibility of writing a book that dealt with alternate history or possible history.
I read Don DeLillo's
It was Libra, right?
groundbreaking novel, Libra. The Kennedy assassination, largely told through the eyes of Lee Harvey Oswald, in 1988, around the time I turned 40. I got hooked on the Kennedy assassination. I was 15 when it occurred. I had an unimaginably dim social sense. I didn't care that JFK had been killed. My dad and I, as he so succinctly put it, fuck that Mick cocksucker. We're Protestants and Republicans. So, my dad, me, that's us. We're orange on St. Patrick's Day. But put all that aside. His thesis that JFK brought about his own death pertaining to dirty deals his family did with a mob, renegade CIA agents, and crazy right-wing Cuban exiles, in his betrayal, his own betrayal of the exiles at the Bay of Pigs invasion, mandated his own death, gored my goat, and did not let me go. I saw that the success of Libra, the profundity of Libra, scotched my shot at writing a book solely about the JFK hit, which I believe to be the world's most over-glamorized, over-sentimentalized, and over-scrutinized business dispute killing. Then I saw that I could write a book where the harbingers of the jackwhack started to percolate in 58, and the killing could occur off page. Halfway through, I realized I have to follow this up with my great novel on the 60s. Then, midway through the Cold 6000, I realized it's got to be volume 3.
Mm-hmm.
Then life kicked the shit out of me. My wife dumped me. I met a woman named Joan. She dumped me. I moved to L.A. I met a married woman named Kathy, who shows up as Karen in this book, even though Joan shows up under her own name. She never left her husband for me and dumped my ass. So I figured I had better write the greatest fucking novel in the history of the universe to make up for all this heartbreak and learn the lesson of these 3 women. Hence, Blood's a Rover.
You mentioned a lot of things that I would like to elaborate on, but first of all, about this highly publicized business dispute killing. I refuse to believe in the lone killer theory.
You're
but
smart.
one thing that starts bothering me: why has in all these years nobody with his dying breath come clean?
They have.
They have?
Yeah. Carlos Marcello, who is in all 3 of these books, published in Dutch by Atlas, has given it up, and there are tapes, and there will be a book published next year, or later this year.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Wherein he says, yes, it was a free-floating conspiracy. He was fucking with the mob. He took money under the table from us. All we wanted was a relative hands-off policy. We were losing a fortune because that cocksucker betrayed the Cuban exiles. We're putting money into the Cuban exile cause. The mob wanted to reopen their Cuban casinos. It wasn't going to happen. Khrushchev cut a side deal with Jack Kennedy after the Cuban Missile Crisis. I'll pull the missiles out of Cuba. You pull American missiles out of Turkey and tell these nutty exiles to leave Fidel alone. Jack finally had to make good on the deal. He started raiding exile camps. The mob was still putting money into the exiles. All of a sudden, Lee Harvey Oswald starts showing up here, and here, when he couldn't have been there, and there. It's a good case for conspiracy.
The reason
And if it ain't true, it's a hell of a book.
The reason I ask you about if you started out with this as a trilogy is because there are at the end of this book there are intimations of what has become known as Watergate, as the break-in. We see Howard Hunt enter the picture.
Right.
Cubans who are being enlisted.
Right.
The Watergate building is even mentioned, I think.
The Watergate scandal's a yawn.
Well, that was my question. So there's no challenge for you in there.
It's been done to death. Most of those guys are still alive. They can sue me.
Mm-hmm.
No, nix. No. Blood's a Rover, the 3rd volume of the Underworld USA trilogy, marks the chronological conclusion of my life's work as a historical novelist. I will go back after my memoir, The Hilliker Curse, is published next fall in Dutch by Atlas.
Which we will talk about in
Yes.
in
Then I will write a second big quartet set a long time ago.
Good. One reviewer mentioned that in this book, Blood's a Rover, there's greater depth, and I quote here, greater depth, emotional resonance, and sense of closure here than in your earlier books, referring to the other 2 of the trilogy. and it's difficult not to agree with him or her. I don't know if it was an unsigned review. The book differs from these previous two in the sense that it's not just concerned with major historical themes, but also, as you mentioned, with the pursuit of a very special woman, Joan, who also happens to be, which also happens to be the name of the woman you were in love with at the time of writing. Is the sense, that quote, the grape, the depth, the emotional resonance, and the sense of closure, is that, can we lead that back to the inclusion of that love theme?
I wanted to write a historical romance. I wanted to write a big book about big people suffused with big ideas, the symbiotic relationship of right-wing law enforcement officials and left-wing revolutionary informants, their collusive relationship, and write a book about transcendence, God, the search for the ineffable, the necessity of belief and conversion of belief, race, gender, sexual obsession, politics of sex, and I wanted to write in a more heartfelt style.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So you agree with that assessment of the...
That's correct,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah. I'm not very fond of trying to find autobiographical material in which works of fiction at that bit. But listening again to what you just read, there's a lot of likeness between Don Crutchfield and you. He lost his mother. He peeps women.
Right. Right.
Is that...
His mother lived to a ripe old age. My mother was murdered. I peeped women. He didn't. He was a wheelman in a private eye. I wasn't.
Uh-huh.
I'm much younger, taller, better looking. His only squawk is he wanted to be taller in the book. Tough shit. You know, I'm giving you money, percentage of the foreign royalties. You're the hero of the book. That's all you get.
Mm-hmm. But after reading Bloods Are Over and rereading the two previous volumes, I had a strong impulse to go out after days of reading and watch children play, listen to birds sing, enjoy the sunshine. What I'm hinting is that it's a very dark and huge volume of work. And what I wonder is, it was the subject matter. Was that partially responsible for the breakup that you suffered after completing the Colt 6000?
No, my marriage had been in the tank for years, and then I had a nervous breakdown. I'd been on the road for a long time, and my nerves were shot. You think I'm skinny now. You should have seen me during my spring-summer '01 book tour. No, the marriage was...
We did see you here.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, I was here.
You
I don't
described
remember
that-
it. I don't remember it very well.
Well, you describe Amsterdam as Shitsville, yeah.
Shitsville, you. I said, yeah, you know, I lack class then. What can I say? What can I say? And it took a long time for me to put shit together in my head and in my heart and in my soul and in my relationship with God to where I could write another book. So I wrote TV shows and motion pictures for money and planned Bloods Are Rover as Helen, my beloved ex-wife and best friend, dumped my ass, and a few women with antithetical views to mine welcomed me in for a while, rescued my rangy ass, and I saw that I could take this clash of left and right, atheist believer, bisexual straight, black and white, Jew and Christian, all of it, and turn it into one great big throbbing motherfucker of a book, which I did.
Mm-hmm. And you wrote it, Bloods Are Over at the same time that you wrote the Hilliker Curse. Is
No,
it?
I finished Bloods Are Rover.
Oh, okay.
And then I wrote the Hilliker Curse. A shortened version was published in 4 issues of Playboy next year. Next fall, Atlas will publish in Dutch, Alfred Knopf in English. In America, Random House UK, Heinemann, the imprint there, and Rivage in French. Yeah.
Is it far-fetched to say that these two books are more or less complementary? There are even some dialogues that I found in Blood's Rover between Dwight, Holly, and Joan that could have been lifted out of the Hilliker Curse, or vice versa.
The Hilliker Curse, which is subtitled My Pursuit of Women, is a complementary volume to my book My Dark Places about my mother's death. It's also a complementary volume to Blood's Rover, which describes taking the women that I had had romantic relationships with and trying to honor them and give them iconic status by representing them fictionally as historical figures, although the portrayals are based on their actual personas.
Coming back to no, well, there's another thing that that I was very curious reading these 3 volumes. All 3 are chock full of real and historical characters. Salmineo is blackmailed to set up a homosexual affair with Bayard Rustin,
Right,
the civil rights leader.
right. Fruit snuff, yeah.
Sonny Liston, the boxer,
Sonny Liston, yeah,
who
he's
is a
in there.
drug user
Dope fiend.
and an enforcer.
Yeah.
Rock Hudson, well, everybody knew that.
We all know about The Rock.
And numerous that he cruised numerous gay bars. John Wayne is a cross-dresser.
Yeah, John Wayne was a cross-dresser, and that's no fucking shit. And why do we all pretend that we don't want the goods, right? I have always wanted to know who's a homo, who's a lesbo, who's a nympho, who's a dope fiend, who's a juice head, who's got the biggest, who's got the smallest, who's shooting Big H. James Dean was the mumble-mouth masochist known as the human ashtray. The 2 greatest influences in my childhood were the Lutheran Church and Confidential magazine. I got the dual dichotomized nature of man early.
That's
And it's staying with me still.
that's the type of magazine that you find at a checkout of yeah.
Oh, they haven't made them in years. This was scurrilous shit in the 50s.
Well, we're all curious about that. I agree.
Yeah,
but,
we are.
But you write their names down and their dialogues. And have you ever been sued by the family or
The families.
the estate?
The families have no legal right to sue. When you and I or anyone in this room die, tough shit. Yeah, you'll be doing it with chihuahuas. Yeah.
So you never mention all this shit
Make
about
sure-
living people. Make sure they're dead.
Make sure they're dead first. Make sure they're dead. And then
So-
go out and write historical fiction.
So what you just
Jack
mentioned.
Kennedy, mort. Alexander the Great, homo, mort. They're all out there just waiting for you. For anyone here in the audience who wants to write historical novels.
So what you just mentioned about Michael Jackson, you wouldn't have been able to say a year ago.
No. No.
That's interesting. But also you describe, they're all dead. Yeah, they're all dead. So that answers my question. But
Yeah.
you describe John F. Kennedy and LBJ and Richard Nixon verbatim.
Yeah, I invented voices for them. Yeah.
Yeah, which you did, by the way, very good. I also with J. Edgar Hoover, I must say, I read 2 books about him, and the way you invent his voice is amazing. Did you do a lot of research about that?
Nah, I hire researchers who compile threadbare fact sheets and chronologies for me so that I won't write myself into error. What I am out to do is to give you the private infrastructure of big public events. So as long as my facts are correct, and as long as within the parameters of my facts, I explicate with verisimilitude, and if my real-life characters move convincingly and seamlessly with my real-life characters in the overall context of big public events, you're going to believe all the bullshit that I'm telling you. And your readers, you want to believe.
Well, we all always have wanted to believe that JFK fucked Marilyn Monroe, and that's a tidbit that you deny.
Here's the deal. First of all, Marilyn Monroe was a yawn to me. Secondly, she wasn't murdered. She'd been drinking and taking barbiturates for weeks. Third, Jack was a 2-minute man hung like a cashew. Fourth, the idea of John F. Kennedy being in a fully engaged, intimate relationship with a woman is staggering. He was a 2-minute man, which is why I call him Bad Back Jack. I was friends with Freddie Otash, who's in this book and in the 2 preceding books. He had tapes of Jack the K playing Barry the Brisket with Marilyn Monroe at Peter Lawford's beachfront fuck pad, and said that Jack was only good for 2 minutes in the sack and was always citing his bad back. Hence, he becomes Bad Back Jack. Monroe and JFK met in 1954, probably had 6 or 7 2-minute assignations, and then she died in 62, and he died in 63. And Marilyn and Jack have been done to death, so I skirted the issue.
Another question about your. You said you have somebody doing the research on that.
Right.
Yep.
Threadbare.
You also have people doing. For instance, I was amazed by the how you describe the chemicals that Wayne.
I have a friend named Kateri Butler. She's a writer. She's my ex-wife's best friend, and the former managing editor of the left-wing rag, the LA Weekly, in Los Angeles. She loves to travel. I hate to travel. She went to the Dominican Republic and brought back some slides. I said, Kateri, I need to know about this, and this, and voodoo herbs that zombify your ass in Haiti. Kateri compiled fact sheets and chronologies. I paid her for it.
Also Vietnam.
Same with Vietnam. Kateri, who's been there, get me some snapshots and give me a glossary of French Vietnamese terms so I can sprinkle it through the book for the sake of verisimilitude.
And what about the all that knowledge about chemicals that Wayne Tedrow employs?
It's true.
Yeah, but where did you get all the information from?
From Kateri Butler.
From?
Kateri Butler,
I
I just told you
about.
You know just when to put it in, you know just when to omit it. Get back to the personal lives of your characters. What will make the book fly in the end is your skill as a writer and your conviction, much more than any research you do.
Do you outline, talking about your method, do you outline your plots in great deal?
The outline for this book was 400 pages.
That's not an outline, that's a first draft.
No, it was not a first draft. It was chapter 1. Wayne Tedrow Jr. Boom, 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 boom. This happens, this happens, this happens. Chapter 2, you read. Chapter 3, Dwight. Boom, 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 boom. It's here. Behind me on a shelf, the research. Paper in front of me. That's how I write a book.
In all 3 books of this trilogy, you create 3 male characters. They are calculating men, able to think all their actions steps ahead. They don't step back from killing, torturing, scheming, extorting, but they all have a weakness, and the same weakness. Women. Who defy otherwise rational behavior, but in this case, Lotto.
It's very, very true. Bad men in love with strong women. That's correct. Yes.
Are women superior beings compared to men?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. It hasn't been women who brought the world to the brink of extinction over and over again since the dawn of time. It's been men. Yeah. I wouldn't mind seeing a matriarchal society take over. It's my vision of utopia at the end. Bloods are over.
There was what I liked about the LA Confidential, going back to an earlier your earlier work, is I mean let me phrase it differently. In many cases, in all your books, including some of your main characters, and I would also say yourself, and can include me, a lot of the men are chasing images instead of women. And in that sense, can the prostitution operation in LA Confidential, can that be seen as a thinking out, as the extrapolation almost of that idea? Men being able to buy and have sex with the image of a famous actress and not with the actress herself.
It's an imagery of women is an idea that has driven me in my work since the very, very beginning. I was a voyeur as a young kid. I was sex crazed even before my mother's death. I live in a mystical state at the age of 61. And I learned very, very early on that I was blessed and cursed with extreme single-mindedness. American history, criminal history, women, classical music, sports cars, dogs. I doubt if I've thought about anything else in all my 61 years. And so in The Hilliker Curse, which Atlas will publish in Dutch next fall, I talk about images of women, conjuring images of women, the art of conjuring women, and how the women have often showed up in reality in my life until my recent combustion with the woman I will spend the rest of my life with, who, as I was conjuring her, conjured me with greater fortitude and foresight.
And that's Erica.
That's Erica, yeah.
You mention a lot of, some women that you conjure, including the Swedish mezzo-soprano Anna-Sophie von Otter.
Right, and Sophie von Otter. I wonder
And
if she's
the
going to
dead-
show up at any of my gigs in Stockholm. You have to bring Erica there to put the hex of the Tiger Woman on her.
But you conjured her from an image that you saw once on a record cover.
Yes, I got the idea for the murderous car hop heroine, Glinda Bledsoe, in White Jazz, the fourth novel of my LA Quartet, from a Deutsche Grammophon poster I saw of Anne-Sophie von Otter, circa 1989.
Have you met her?
I have not met the great mezzo-soprano, nor am I going to.
Why not?
Because Erica wouldn't dig it, and Erica and I have a deal. And she comes up to me at one of my gigs in Stockholm and said, "What have you been doing? Writing about me, motherfucker. I'll just refer her to Erica." Mm-hmm. Never underestimate Erica Schickel and the hex of the Tiger Woman. Any one of my women fans who comes on to me will immediately turn into a dyke. That is the power of the hex of the Tiger Woman.
You needn't be afraid that Anne Sexton will turn up at a reading.
Anne Sexton, the great poet, another obsession of mine, is dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's why
I would
no fear
describe
there.
Anne Sexton as Erica Schickel for the poor.
But you were very infatuated with her image.
I was infatuated with images of Anne Sexton, yeah.
I read somewhere, this is a totally different question, but I read somewhere that you are frequently asked by organizations like the LA Police Department or the Police Academy to read or give a talk
Yes, I do.
Isn't that, I mean, to me that's surprising after reading the way you portray policemen, especially at the LAPD.
Well, first of all, the LAPD is the greatest police agency in America. I'm not left-wing. I've never been anti-cop. I will be the first to tell you that I am a frequent spokesman for LAPD. Count them among my closest friends and allies, and think that a return to more aggressive police work and some wink-wink stepping aside and looking aside at the notion of civil liberties would make for a better Los Angeles. Cops know that I'm on their side. They love me.
But
Scotty Bennett, come on, you dug Scotty Bennett. Yeah?
yeah,
Scotty Bennett's an armed robbery cop in this book. It's an old LAPD mandate. You commit armed robbery, we're going to kill your ass. And I'll tell you, it works.
why is crime such a big theme in American fiction?
Crime's like jazz. We do it best. We did it first. No jazz musician, no Duke Ellington, Count Basie, Charlie Parker will ever be as great as Beethoven. But 20th century American crime fiction, 19th century German music, you got the Concertgebouw Orchestra here, you got the Berlin Philharmonic, Vienna Philharmonic, Bavarian Radio Symphony Orchestra. There's some things you folks do best, some things we do best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So American
Crime. We do crime, yeah.
crime
Crime
and,
fiction.
crime and jazz. You sell more books or a lot of books in France more than in America.
Yeah, I sell more books in France than I do in America.
Aren't you afraid that the enthusiasm in a country like that ties in with let's say, a distinct anti-American feeling?
No.
No?
People can think whatever the hell they like. Yeah, I'm not out to say no to people. I am not out to kibosh the sale of anybody's book. Mine, yours, people with opposing viewpoints. Mm-hmm. I support literacy. I hate hyperkinetic motion pictures, Kindles, books on the internet, books that you download. I'm a book guy. Yeah.
You don't work on a
The
computer.
frogs are buying my books. God bless them. Yeah.
You don't use a computer for writing, do you?
I write by hand.
You write by hand.
Yeah.
A last question from my side. But talking about what we do best in the United States.
Yeah.
President Obama, whom you voted for, I understand.
What the fuck does President Obama have to do with me? What's his? Oh no! Is this going to be one of these weigh in on America as it is today questions?
Nope, it is not.
Tell me. Ask me the question.
I'm
Is he a fan of mine? No. Fuck no.
I'm referring to what you say about what Americans do best. He gets 30 death threats a day. Should we be afraid?
No.
No?
Nobody's going to kill him.
No?
Yeah.
What makes you think that?
And Jack Kennedy got 12 a day, and Richard Nixon got 14. Yeah,
There are that many,
30 death threats a day. It's not bad.
there are that many cooks in America.
He'll survive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Glad to hear
Probably won't be reelected, but he'll survive.
glad to hear you say that.
Yeah.
We have some time for the audience
All right, audience.
to ask any questions about, and yes, over there.
I heard you call one of my favorite novels of yours, The Cold 6000, called it Flawed.
Yeah.
I'd still like to know why you call it that.
It is too difficult, too stylistically rigorous in its presentation of a very complex text. It's like the Marine Corps. It's for the few, the brave, the strong. I'm glad you dig it. I dig it. But I was a little bit wigged out at the time, and it's not the book that Blood's a Rover is. I went overboard by my own standards on that book. I'm always trying to be better. Yeah.
Theo Capel.
Telling us all you were burned by several wives, girlfriends, etc. You didn't tell me what happened to your favorite dog.
Barco? Barco the Bull Terrier has gone on to his eternal reward. Right now, he is hanging out. He is the dog of Beethoven. So that when we get to the other side, Beethoven, who will be younger and handsomer and will have found finally his immortal beloved, yes, with his hearing restored.
Beethoven was deaf, not blind. He doesn't need a dog.
What? He needs a dog. Everybody needs a fucking dog, man. You gotta have a dog. He's Beethoven's dog in heaven. Barco didn't. Margaret did. Margaret lives with my ex-wife in Austin, Texas. Yeah. Margaret's a dyke dog. She likes women.
Next
Les
question.
chiens lesbiennes.
Next question, please. Oh, come on. Yes. over
Hey.
there, yes.
So what's Tiger's banging hookers and taking Vicodin and fucking up his golf game, right?
And the whole public persona versus the private persona.
Yeah.
person, yeah.
Well, privilege kills people. And I have a funny relationship with golf because I caddied for 9 years. So it's the only thing I know a lot about but can't do. And he's the greatest natural golfer of all time. But will he end up with more victories in major tournaments than Jack Nicklaus? Not if he stays addicted to the drugs he's addicted to. So I would advise LT Gray to go back to step one and stop his shitty behavior, quit taking Vicodin, and work on his swing.
Over there.
Mr. Ellroy, your novels are very moral works. Why is morality so important?
Because God's always watching and you don't want to fuck up your shot at heaven.
But is religion the same to you as morality? Do they intersect or do they?
They do in my case. They don't have to. No. I'm not telling you have to believe what I believe. You probably should. Yeah. But you don't have to. I'm not going to coerce you. I am, however, going to coerce you into buying this book in Dutch.
I saw another hand there. Yeah. Over there. Same person.
I think you write about cops and detectives with great affection, and you told us you're friends with cops, and you even reopened the case on your mother's death.
Yeah.
I'd like to know if was there ever a desire, or do you think you would have been able to be a detective yourself?
No, I think not. Because I need to be alone. I require a great deal of solitude, and I think police work would have been a bad choice for me. I've never wanted to be a policeman.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did all the work on the case involving your mother?
I'm a very fine interrogator and interviewer, and I learned it from my policeman partner, Bill Stoner. Yeah.
So that was a time it wasn't too bad to work with two people on a case.
It's a gas to go around and ask people questions and catch them up in lies and trip them up and get them to finally tell you the truth. But I wanted to be able to take them into back rooms, handcuff them to chairs, and hit them with phone books, and Bill wouldn't let me.
Okay, thank you.
And also Stoner was a great connoisseur of people, you see, you mentioned. for instance.
Tremendous student of people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. Which helped, of course.
Yes.
Be collaborating with
Yes.
him. Yeah. Other questions, please. Yeah, over there.
Mr. Ellroy, I enjoyed your books, but I was very surprised that you got rid of your characters, Kemper, Boyd, and Big Pete. Why is that?
Some people have to go. You know, Big Pete is still alive with Barb and the cat in Sparta, Wisconsin, and Kemper was too arrogant to live. Yeah.
And there was another question. Yep, Frans.
You write about dead people. Is there in present society a situation or a plot that you would like to write about?
None at all.
None at
And
all.
I live in isolation very deliberately. And I'm not being disingenuous here. I've never used a computer. Alfred A. Knopf made me get a Facebook page, and so I have an assistant who answers for me on Facebook. I don't type. I don't have a cell phone. I am computer illiterate. I don't know how to operate a computer. I don't go to motion pictures, read books, go to many social events, and I do not keep track of the news. I deliberately avoid stimulation so that I might better live in the historical periods that I write about, because a lot of the art inherent in writing books like mine, big, dense works of stylistic art, historical art, is the ability to sustain concentration. And so the constant barrage of imagery entailed by culture bothers me. I would never travel for pleasure. I only travel for book tours. Amsterdam today, Munich tomorrow.
Yep, over there, lady.
Hi.
Hi.
You have a really interesting and illustrative way of speaking and presenting your beliefs, but you say you don't use a computer, you don't read, you don't go to films. How come you have such an extensive vocabulary? How have you developed it? Because I find it really interesting, huh? It's very illustrative how you speak, huh?
I read up until I was 30 years old and started writing books. I read crime books almost exclusively, and I made myself an accomplished public speaker at the get-go when I started doing reading performances 20 years ago. There's an art to reading. Read short, no dialogue. Do not differentiate dialogue. Do not have to be several characters simultaneously, men, women, old, young, black, white. Limit it to straight narrative, keep it under 12 or 13 minutes. Some funny shit, some profane shit, some outrageous shit, you're off. So I am the scion of generations on both sides of Protestant clergy, and I was to the pulpit born.
In the back over there.
Hi, I grew up in Hollywood. I wanted to ask you, was Mickey Cohen a real gangster? Or was he a wannabe? And have you written about him?
Oh, yeah. Where'd you go to high school? You went to Hollywood High. Listen, this is very interesting because I was Fairfax High, class of 65. Yeah, I did not graduate from, I got the boot from Fairfax High. Did you go to LeConte Junior High? Yeah. I didn't go to LeConte Junior High. I went to John Burroughs because I lived south of Beverly Boulevard. LeConte was always a little bit more run down than John Burroughs, but much, much cooler. Do you remember a guy named Paul McEachern at Hollywood High? Do you remember a guy named John the Whale Blackman? Do you remember Gail Miller? A girl named Gail Miller? Do you remember a girl named Ann Miller? Pardon me? No.
The guitar.
No.
The guitar player you're referring to? Yeah.
One of my great regrets is that I didn't go to Hollywood High, because Hollywood High was the coolest motherfucking high school in Los Angeles, wasn't it? Yeah, yeah. I mean, their mascot was the brand name of a condom. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The reason that Don Crutchfield went to Hollywood High in this book is because I didn't. In reality, he went to Culver High. You might want to read a piece that I wrote in my book Crime Wave, which I think is in print from Atlas, called Let's Twist Again. It's about my John Burroughs junior high school class of 62, which would have been your junior high school class of 62 at LeConte. Did you know my buddy Fat Freddie Harding? Had you heard of the big fist fight in the main building at LeConte between Brian Kiefer and Dwight Gillette? Right. 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 Yeah. Why didn't you go to Bancroft or JB? Yeah, I'm sure you, yeah. Okay, you were north of Sunset. Yeah, Sunset and where? Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's 3 blocks from LeConte. Yeah. Right, over there near Star Sporting Goods. Yeah, yeah. L.A., come on vacation, go home on probation.
Next question. Yes. I saw an arm here a little while ago. No? Yeah, over there.
LA Confidential has been made in a very successful movie. I can imagine that for the last trilogy, there also have been some producers out who have made an option on the movie, but perhaps so far, have there been any plans? And my question is more, I assume so, what would be the biggest challenge, because is the subject matter perhaps an issue there?
Well, there will never be a movie made or a television show made from these 3 books because Home Box Office bought the first book, owns it outright, thus they have control of the characters and they've dropped the project. So that's it, no one else can do them. Life goes on. They weren't meant to be motion pictures. They were meant to be books, yeah. Published by Atlas in Dutch.
Okay.
Couple more questions.
One more. Yeah, over there.
How do you deal with the political correctness of the 90s?
I ignore it. Yeah. I assume it doesn't apply to me. Yeah. Yeah.
More?
Yeah, I'll take 2 more questions. Come on, yeah.
He likes more questions.
Yeah, a couple more questions.
Yeah.
Let it ride.
I might be mistaken. Was there a time you ever lived in Kansas City?
I lived in Kansas City with Helen Canode, my second ex-wife, from 1995 to 2002. I lived in. Are you from there? No. New York, but I remember reading you were really. Yeah, I loved KC. It was too hot though. We lived in a swank enclave called Mission Hills. My dog shat on George Brett's front lawn every day.
Was George Brett the human vacuum cleaner?
No, but one of his slaves was.
No. I mean, you're referring to the third baseman.
The third baseman.
Yeah, he was called the human vacuum cleaner because he swept up every ball that came in his direction.
I didn't know that. He was just the weird guy who always gave me the fish eye because I was the guy with a bullet-headed white dog who shat in his lawn every day. I never spoke a word to him.
Another thing about George Brett was that he had hemorrhoids.
How do you know this?
Because every time he came at bat,
Yeah.
after he came at bat, there was a Preparation Age commercial. I'm not inventing this.
Isn't this the logical fallacy post hoc propter ergo
No.
hoc?
No, because people were no. There was a whole scandal about that because they were exploiting his disease and things like that. So
I heard he started a rock band called Hemorrhoid Void.
What were you, the singer or the?
Am I a singer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a couple of cover tunes I could
No,
sing
but,
for you. If we get a show of hands, I'd sing them.
Oh, there are the hands. More questions. Mr. Ellroy likes more questions. Yes, over there.
You said that you wrote for some time for movies and TV and for money. Could you elaborate on that? And what was it like?
I wrote some of the best screenplays that have never been made. I wrote the remake of the James Cagney movie White Heat. Didn't get made. I wrote.
But you got paid, didn't you?
I got paid.
Okay.
A script called 77, partnership between a black cop and a white cop during the time of the SLA shootout. Never got made. I wrote a movie called The Plague Season that was made into a very bad movie directed by Ron Shelton called Dark Blue with Kurt Russell. Turkey. 6 other guys wrote behind me. I wrote a movie called The Night Watchman that got turned into a dud called Street Kings with Keanu Reeves. And the residuals from that covered my alimony and taxes last year. So that's it. If motion picture work covers my alimony and taxes, I'm ahead of the game. I write the books for love, and I control final form. Somebody wants me to write a movie, I don't patronize it. I don't do a shitty job. I'm a WGA member. I stand by the rules. Yeah. I love a good movie, but I love a good hamburger as well. And if I never ate another hamburger, I wouldn't care, nor would I care if I never saw another movie.
Theo Capelle again.
Just telling us that you rewrote White Heat with James Cagney. Is this the film which he stands in the oil?
Top of the world, yeah. Yeah, I don't do that.
What was your end of the movie? The same thing, or?
It's about robbery detectives in the San Joaquin Valley, and it's entirely different.
He's closely attached to his mother. And you're something with your mother as well. So could you elaborate on what you do in your rewrite in the mother-son relation?
You will never see the script. I can tell you that it's a damn good script that would make for a better movie than the original. Hey, sit down. Your status as an audience member allows you to ask me questions, not contest my answers. Next question.
Yep.
I have another question. LA Confidential was made into a film.
Right.
Did you work closely? Did you see
Nah, I had nothing to do with LA Confidential. The best thing that ever happened to me in my career, I had nothing to do with. Sometimes you just get lucky. Some movies you want to see, some movies you want to flee. That's in with the former.
Oh, another question way in the back there. Oh, the same lady. Yeah.
Did you see the film Chinatown, and what did you think?
I think Chinatown sucks. Chihuahua Dicks. I think it's one of the most overrated classic American films of all time. I think it's full of plot holes, bad drama, shitty mise-en-scene, a contrived ending where everyone comes together to explicate the entire story. To put Chinatown in perspective, it's a period film within a period film that was released the month that Richard Nixon resigned from office. So I find it difficult to separate the two events. And subtextually, it's in the minds of a lot of people. Also, people can't think for themselves. He said Chinatown's a bad movie. Yeah, so Citizen Kane and so Schindler's List. They're both dogs. It's a damn good movie. It's good Ellroy light. Yeah.
Ask Mr. Ellroy a question about rock and roll. He can get off about that.
Yeah. I hate rock and roll.
Well, ask him. No?
No.
What do you think of rock and roll? Okay.
Rock and roll is jejune, puerile, institutionalized rebelliousness. Yeah, that's it. 60, 70-year-old rock and rollers, quit dressing all in black, quit rebelling against your parents. Go back to the big guy, Beethoven. Does anybody want to ask me why I write? In my artisan craft, exercised in the still night, when only the moon rages and the lovers lie abed with all their griefs in their arms. I labor by singing light, not for the strut and trade of charms upon the ivory stages, but for the common wages of their most secret heart. Not for the proud man apart do I write on these spindrift pages, but for the lovers, their arms round the griefs of the ages, who pay no praise or wages, nor heed my art or craft. Dylan Thomas. God bless you all.